What is going on, Swoopers? Welcome back to another episode of Swoop Luke. In this episode, we'll be previewing the huge gather round game against the Saints. Let's get into it. I don't think there's been a bigger game since the 2010 Grand Final replay for St Kilda and Collingwood than there is on Sunday afternoon between us. It is going to be crazy. St Kilda are 4-0 for the first time since said 2010. Collingwood are 3-1, getting humbled by Brisbane last week. And it is just going to be huge. Gather round, this new sort of gather round initiative. We have the last game of gather round. If it was played at the MCG, there could be upwards of 70,000 people. It's at Adelaide Oval. It is what it is. But it is going to be I don't know what other word to use other than huge. Going into the season, I don't think anyone had this penned down to be game of the round, let alone probably game of the season so far. St Kilda, like I said, are 4-0. They have versed, who they've versed. They, Fremantle, Bulldogs, Gold Coast, Essendon, and we've played pretty much top four contenders all the way through. And now St Kilda get this test against a Collingwood team that are looking to atone for their sins. I love that, atone for their sins. Against, about what happened against Brisbane last week, and we know how that played out. We'll talk about it a little bit about it later. But yeah, like I said, this game is going to be insane. No matter which way it goes, and I really feel like it is a coin flip of a game, it is going to be incredible. So let's talk about St Kilda a little bit first. So last week, they absolutely smashed Gold Coast. What I love about St Kilda, and I've said this publicly on Twitter, I think, before, is, they, for what has happened to the Saints, since the start of the year, they've got their injury list, probably the biggest in the league. Maybe Richmond sort of competes with that, but they've got over a dozen players out. Jack Steele is out, their captain and stuff like that. All these other players. What they've been able to do and what they've been able to bring to their table says a lot about Ross Lyon coming back and coaching, says a lot about the culture that he's demanding from the Saints now. And it's very reminiscent of Collingwood last year, first year under Craig McRae. They're an exciting brand to watch. They're doing a lot of two-way running. They're pretty much sort of got that Collingwood, what do you call it? Playbook, from the Collingwood playbook, where they're outnumbering at the ground ball, getting the ball, quick handballs out, just running as fast as they can, getting it in, and then doubling back when they need to. So you can see that it's kind of going to be, for my opinion anyway, two very similar sort of game styles going up against each other. So it's not going to be so much as to the personnel on the field, rather than who can coach against that game style. So as much as it is, Pendlebury versus Brad Hill or whatever sort of players you want to put up against each other, it's very much McRae against Ross Lyon. Last week against the Suns, the Saints scored over 70 points from turnovers. Now, the league average is about 48 points a game. 74 points is pretty much doubling that, and that is absolutely insane to think about and incredible to think about. So the Saints are very, very good defensively. They take a lot of intercept sort of possessions. They're ranked first in the league for disposals, kicks, handballs, marks per game. And they're ranked first in least opponent's points per game. So they keep their opposing teams to a low score, because they're ranked so good defensively, and they're very good on the spread. They like to play wide, etc. So it is going to be a very big test for Collingwood. The one thing about the Saints, though, is they're not ranked very high for clearances, so they're not a very high clearance side. So that could be something that we expose them with. In saying that, though, we don't have a certified ruckman. We'll talk a little bit about that later, but that could be a little bit of the Saints' downfall if we can get on top of those clearances. For Collingwood, like I said, we really want to atone for our sins of last week. You're not going to win a lot of games when, one, you let a team kick 10 unanswered goals, and two, you're kicking 17 points. Like I've said, if we had just converted 4 or 5 of those goal chances into goals, we probably go on and win that game. Yes, we didn't have a certified register ruckman, going with McStay, Frampton, and Ash Johnson, so we don't have that big forward in McStay sort of commanding that forward line. But We win center clearances. We only lose out on stoppage clearances. And like I said, if we had kicked 4 or 5 of those points, we're up there with winning that game because we did have more scoring shots. That has been our downfall the last 2 weeks. Yes, we beat Richmond. That should have been a 6-goal win if we had just converted. And this Brisbane game, again, we just need to convert. Not converting or bad kicking is bad football. We saw it with Essendon, who just beat the Giants because they scored 20 or something points, you know. Bad kicking is bad footy. What Brisbane were able to do, how they were able to humble us and give us that bit of a wake-up call last week, and I talked about this in my review of the game, is that they exposed our hard running up and not really doubling back. Geelong did it a lot. Richmond did it a lot as well. Port didn't do it at all because, you know, we smashed Port Adelaide. But what they're able to do is, because all of our halfbacks are pushing forward to get that corridor game, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely poetic when it comes off. But because they're pushing up, if we don't get that ground ball, if we don't win that ground ball, not only have we committed a lot of players to said ground ball, Brisbane will have a couple out the back who get the handball out, kick out, and how many times did we see Hipwood or Danaher, Charlie Cameron get out the back and score those goals because we committed too much up, that Russian roulette football that we're known to play. And look, when it comes off, it's beautiful, but when it doesn't, that's when teams hurt you on that turnover, and that's where St Kilda will probably look to exploit. Now, how do you really stop that? And you don't really, like, you still want to play that explosive Russian roulette football. You still want to be that exciting team. What happens is maybe you tell your halfbacks to not all commit. You know, Nathan Murphy coming up forward of centre, Isaac Quaynor. Dacos is going to do what he wants because he's Dacos. But Isaac Quaynor and Nathan Murphy, maybe just tell them to hold back because St Kilda have a very dominant forward line. Machito Owens, you know, he had 27 possessions, 19 of those were contested. He's a big boy, and he scored 2 goals too. Jack Higgins scored 5 goals, and then 4 goals the week prior. He scored 9 goals in 2 games. Jack Higgins, he likes to score a lot of goals against us. We've seen that when he played for Richmond, and then he's done a couple times against with the Saints. But Isaac Quaynor will probably go on to Higgins. Quaynor didn't have a very good game last week. Charlie Cameron kicked 6 goals. Quaynor was fumbling it a little bit. I back Quaynor to have a good game and come back and you know, just play better than he did last week against the Lions. If you let Jack Higgins get off the leash in the first or so quarter, that's going to tell the tale for the rest of the game. We can't afford another small forward to kick 4, 5, or 6 goals like we did Cam Rayner and Charlie Cameron. The other thing as well is the ruck situation. Now, like I mentioned previously in this video, the ruck situation, yes, it isn't ideal because you're losing Dan McStay in that forward line and Ash Johnson, you know, as well. But because we won centre clearances, we only lost stoppage clearances, what I would really do is okay, like hear me out, right? I would leave Dan McStay in the forward line, get him to only take the ruck in the forward 50, Billy Frampton in the defensive 50, Ash Johnson anywhere between the arcs. I would almost have Ash Johnson playing a defensive ruckman role where, you know, like Darcy Cameron and Mason Cox did, where they could just float back and take those defensive intercept marks. Ash Johnson can take a really good mark. But he's athletic as well, and I really don't know what his fitness levels are like if he can go as a permanent ruck. But that's what I would trial because we were missing Dan McStay in the forward line. We saw how well it worked in the first 3 rounds. Pulling him out of that forward line, it really messed us up, bombing it in long, and the Brisbane Lions were just intercepting. Another thing that I would love, and I said it before, is Jack Ginnivan to come back for gather round. Yes, he hasn't had good VFL numbers, but that kid is an excitement machine. He is ready to go. As soon as he gets his chances, he's going to just defend the black and white stripes for all it's worth. And he's done his penance. Why am I going with like these biblical terms? But he's done his time for what happened during the preseason. What better opportunity than gather round against the Saints in probably the new swooping Magpie jersey as well, which we know is definitely coming. I'd love for him to kick 3 or 4 goals, and that's going to be my big call a little bit later on in the video. Last week, wasn't good, and it was probably that second to third quarter was probably the worst I've seen us play under Craig McRae. But it's just not taking those chances. Hopefully we do a lot of kicking at goal practice, because that was incredibly bad. But like I said, if we're generating enough chances, we're just not taking them, just not putting teams to the sword. This is going to be a real big test for St Kilda, and I think, we'll be able to beat them. I do honestly feel like we'll be able to beat them. We don't lose many 2 games or many consecutive games in a row. I think Craig McRae is, as soon as that Brisbane game ended, I think that's all he was watching, that second and third quarter, seeing what went wrong, because we started off very strong, and then all of a sudden, bang, Jack Crisp is playing. Thankfully, all that is being put aside. He's going to come out and have a fantastic game. The only changes I see is Reef McGuinness coming out, Jack Ginnivan coming in, and Markov being our super sub again. My big call, like I said, is only based on Jack Ginnivan playing and getting named. Is Jack Ginnivan kicks 4 goals. If Ginnivan doesn't play, my big call is that Jordan De Goey is going to kick 2 to 3 goals and have 25 plus disposals, because we need this. This calls for a big Jordan De Goey game. You can kind of feel it. My prediction is Collingwood only by 14, because the Saints are going to throw everything at us. They're a really good side. They're 4-0. Like, I don't care. Oh, but they haven't versed anyone. They're 4-0. Right? They're a good bloody side, and they're going to want to show the AFL world that they're here to play deep into the finals. Anyway, guys, that's just been my really quick preview of the game. Got another bunch of videos coming out, a nice opposition views. I've hooked up with Jake from Saints TV as well, so that'll be appearing on his channel. Can't wait for that. But anyway, guys, leave your thoughts and comments down below. What is your predictions? How do you think we're going to win? Are we going to lose? Where can we improve from last week? All your thoughts down below. Again, appreciate you. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and I'll tell you some double shackers. I'll see you later.